Damien. His name slips from her lips like a secret she was never meant to keep. Her bare back arches under silver light, fingers moving between her thighs in slow, deliberate circles. She knows he's watching. She wants him to watch. And when her body finally breaks apart in shuddering release, she whispers his name again, louder, like a dare. Welcome back, beautiful souls, to Mr. Cael Stories, where love is never simple and redemption always costs something. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. You will not want to miss what happens next. My loyal family, you already know what to do. Smash that like button so this story reaches every heart that needs it tonight. Have you ever ached for someone so completely that even their lies felt like truth? Tonight, one man will discover the woman who saved his children might destroy him. And what she does at midnight will leave him frozen in fear, burning with desire and begging for both punishment and mercy. Stay until the very last second. Comment, "I'm ready" below if you're brave enough for this kind of love. Let's begin. Northern California, 2.5 years ago. Juliette Voss never made it out of the operating room. The triplets were pulled blue and silent into a world that had already felt too heavy for them. Luna, River, Sage. 3 heartbeats fighting against a diagnosis that sounded like a life sentence. Severe, spastic, quadriplegic cerebral palsy. The doctors were gentle, but their words were knives. They may never walk. They may never feed themselves. Prepare for lifelong care. Damien Voss, 36, billionaire, genius, widower, heard the verdict and simply shut down. He turned his glass and steel mansion into a fortress of silence. Every room wired with hidden cameras. Every door on biometric locks. Every caregiver vetted, watched, and eventually fired. 12 nurses in 24 months. 1 stole morphine. 1 sold grainy photos of the babies to gossip sites. 1 pressed her body against him in the hallway and whispered, "I could make you feel alive again." He had her escorted out before she finished the sentence. By the time Marisol Vega arrived for her interview, Damien hadn't slept in the same wing as his children in over a year. He met her in the cold marble foyer, eyes bloodshot, voice like gravel. "Rules," he said without greeting. "No photos, no social media, no emotional attachment. My children are not your inspiration porn. Understood?" Marisol, 28, sun-kissed skin, long black hair twisted up with a pencil, looked straight into the storm in his eyes and answered softly, "Perfectly, Mr. Voss." She started work the next morning. That same night, at 1:17 a.m., Damien opened the camera feed from the nursery, expecting to see the night nurse scrolling on her phone. Instead, he saw her. Marisol had turned the lights down to a warm amber glow. The triplets lay side by side on a thick foam mat, medical beds pushed aside. She wore nothing but a thin white tank and soft cotton shorts, barefoot, hair loose down her back like spilled ink. She was singing, a low, aching Spanish lullaby that felt older than the redwoods outside. Her hands moved over Luna's tiny, contracted legs with slow, reverent strokes, thumbs pressing gently into tight muscles, coaxing them open the way a woman coaxes a lover's clenched fist. "Así, mi amor. Déjame entrar." Let your body remember it was born to move. Damien's breath caught. He should have marched in and fired her for breaking protocol. Instead, his hand tightened around the edge of his desk until his knuckles went white. Because Luna's foot twitched. Not a random spasm. A deliberate flex of toes against Marisol's palm. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself a lot of things that night, but he didn't close the feed. If your heart just skipped imagining a man too broken to hope, double tap that screen right now and type, "I feel him" in the comments. Let's take him into the fire together. Night after night, Damien became a prisoner of his own screens. He told himself he was monitoring safety. He lied. Every evening at 12:47 a.m., after the night nurse signed out, Marisol slipped back into the nursery. Lights dimmed to honey. Music low, Cuban bolero or Colombian vallenato, songs that tasted like salt and skin. She stripped down to almost nothing, tank clinging to damp curves, shorts riding low on her hips, and she worked on the babies like a priestess, performing sacred, forbidden rites. Warm lavender oil in her palms. Slow, gliding pressure up River's calves, over the bend of his knees, coaxing blood and memory into limbs that had forgotten they belonged to him. She whispered things no medical chart would ever record. "Tu cuerpo es fuerte, mi cielo." It's waiting for you to come home to it. Sage's fingers uncurled when she kissed his tiny knuckles. Luna sighed, actually sighed, when Marisol's lips brushed the sole of her foot. And Damien watched, shirt unbuttoned, chest heaving, sweat cooling on his skin, cock aching against the seam of his trousers. He hated himself for it. He couldn't stop. One night, the ritual shifted. The babies were finally asleep in their cribs, exhausted from hours of new sensation. Marisol stayed. She stood beneath the skylight, moonlight pouring over her like liquid silver. Slowly, deliberately, she peeled the tank over her head and let it fall. Heavy breasts, dusky nipples tightening in the cool air. She cupped them, thumbs circling, head falling back as a soft moan slipped free. Then her eyes lifted, straight into the camera lens she knew was hidden in the crown molding. Damien. His name again, this time a plea and a command. She slid her shorts down, stepped free, and lay back on the same mat where his children had been hours earlier. One hand drifted between her thighs. The other reached toward the camera, as if she could pull him through the glass. Her hips rolled in that same hypnotic rhythm she used on the babies. Slow, patient, relentless. Fingers circling, dipping, spreading slick heat. Breaths turning to whimpers. She never looked away from the lens. When she came, it was violent and beautiful. Back bowing off the floor, thighs trembling, his name tearing from her throat like a prayer. Damien sat frozen in his dark office, heart hammering so hard he thought it would fracture a rib. He didn't touch himself. He was terrified that if he did, he would never stop. The next morning he summoned her. "You're fired," he said, voice raw from a night without sleep. Marisol stood across his desk in simple jeans and a white t-shirt, hair still damp from the showering off the scent of lavender and sex. She didn't blink. "Fire me if you need to," she answered softly. "But first watch the footage from 412A. He already had. A dozen times. In it, solemn little Sage, who had never tracked a moving object in his life, lifted his head while Marisol supported his torso. Her bare breast pressed warm against his tiny back for leverage. Sage's dark eyes found the camera lens and held 7 impossible seconds of connection. Damien's voice cracked. "What the hell are you doing to them?" Marisol stepped closer, close enough that he could smell lavender and warm skin. "I'm reminding their nervous systems that pleasure and safety still exist," she said. "And I'm reminding you of the same thing." The air between them ignited. That night, Damien didn't stay behind glass. He stood outside the nursery door in nothing but low-slung sweatpants, pulse roaring in his ears. The door was cracked open. Inside, Marisol knelt naked on the mat, palms open on her thighs, moonlight worshipping every curve. She looked up and smiled, soft, certain. "I wondered how long you'd hide," she whispered. He stepped inside and shut the door, and let the latch click, like the starting gun of a war he was ready to lose. If you felt that door close in your bones, comment, "I'm inside right now," and share this video with someone who needs to feel alive again. We're only getting started. The latch clicked. The world narrowed to the soft thud of his bare feet on the nursery rug, and the scent of lavender, warm skin, and something darker, need that had been starving for years. Marisol stayed on her knees, naked, moonlight sliding over the slope of her breasts, the soft curve of her belly, the shadow between her thighs. She didn't cover herself. She waited. Damien's voice came out shredded. "I should throw you out." "You should," she agreed, rising slowly, every movement liquid and unashamed. "But you won't." 3 steps, and she was in front of him. Her palm landed flat over his heart. It slammed against her hand like it wanted to break free and live inside her instead. "You're starving," she whispered. "Not for sex. For touch that doesn't come with a price tag or a lie." His control snapped like old rope. He backed her against the nearest wall, mouth crashing into hers, hungry, almost punishing. She kissed him back just as fierce, nails raking down his bare back, legs parting so he could fit between them. He lifted her easily. She was soft everywhere he was hard, and her thighs locked around his waist, ankles crossing at the small of his back. The thin cotton of his sweatpants was the only thing left between them. "Tell me to stop," he growled against her throat, teeth scraping the tendon there. "Don't you dare," she breathed, rolling her hips so the heat of her slid along his trapped length. He carried her to the wide window seat, still warm from the day's sun. Moonlight poured over her as he laid her down. He knelt, spread her open with shaking hands, and tasted her like a man who'd forgotten water existed. She cried out, fingers twisting in his hair. hips rocking against his tongue in that same slow, relentless rhythm she used on the babies. He didn't rush. He licked, sucked, circled, worshipped until her thighs clamped around his head and she came undone with a broken sob of his name. When he rose, eyes black with need, she pulled him down, tore the sweatpants away, wrapped her fingers around him hot, hard, pulsing, and guided him exactly where she needed. One slow roll of her hips, and he sank into her in a single stroke. They both groaned. Perfect fit. Burning. Home. He tried to be gentle. She wouldn't let him. Harder, Damien. Give me every piece you've locked away. He did. He thrust like grief and gratitude, like punishment and absolution. The window seat creaked beneath him. Her nails scored his shoulders. She whispered filthy, reverent things in Spanish that made his vision white out. Look at me, Miram. I want to watch you fall apart inside me. He buried his face in her neck when he came, pulsing deep, her name a broken prayer against her skin. After, neither moved for a long time. Eventually he carried her to the thick rug among scattered toys and blankets that still smelled faintly of baby lotion and lavender. He laid her down, stretched out beside her, and held her like she was the only real thing left in his world. She traced the scars on his chest, old climbing falls, new grief lines, and spoke into the quiet. I'm not doing this for you, she said softly. I'm doing it for them, but I want you anyway. I've wanted you since the first night I felt your eyes on me through that camera. His voice cracked. I don't know how to be a father anymore. I don't even know how to be a man. Marisol pressed her lips to the center of his chest, right over his thundering heart. Then let me teach you, she whispered, the same way I'm teaching them. One impossible touch at a time. Outside, the redwoods stood guard. Inside, two broken people started learning how to breathe again. If you felt every thrust of that scene in your soul, comment, I'm burning right now, and share this with someone who needs to remember what alive feels like. The days blurred into sunlight and laughter. The nights burned. By morning, Marisol belonged to the children. She turned the sun-drenched therapy room into a playground of miracles. PVC gate trainers she built herself, colorful resistance bands, a small trampoline that made River squeal the first time his feet bounced. She sang while she worked, hips swaying to silent music, sweat glistening down the curve of her spine. Damien watched from the doorway, sleeves rolled high, hands finally brave enough to join. Like this, Papa, she'd say, guiding his palms under Sage's armpits. Feel how he pushes down? That's him choosing to stand. And Sage did choose. One day, he locked his knees and grinned like he'd conquered Everest. Damien's eyes filled. He didn't bother hiding it anymore. By night, Marisol belonged to him. Some evenings, she slipped into his shower unannounced, water sluicing over both of them as she dropped to her knees and took him in her mouth, slow and worshipful, eyes locked on his the entire time. Other nights, he carried her to his bed and spent hours mapping every inch of her with his tongue until she begged, voice hoarse, legs shaking. Once, at 3 a.m., the babies were finally asleep after a long day of new milestones. Damien found her in the nursery again, wearing only one of his white dress shirts, sleeves rolled to her elbows, buttons undone to her navel. She was swaying gently with Luna in her arms, humming. He came up behind her, slid his hands inside the open shirt, cupped her breasts, thumbs brushing nipples already hard. Luna sighed and dozed off against Marisol's shoulder. Put her down, he whispered against Marisol's ear, teeth grazing the lobe. I need you on that rug. Now. She laid Luna in the crib, turned, and let the shirt fall. He took her right there on the nursery floor, 10 feet from where his children slept, her palms braced on his chest, riding him slow and deep, biting her lip to stay quiet. Every time she clenched around him, he had to clench his jaw to keep from groaning aloud. When she came, it was with her forehead pressed to forehead, breath mingling, tears slipping into his hair. I love you, he whispered against her mouth the first time the words finally tore free. She answered by kissing him until neither of them could breathe. Weeks became a fever dream of progress. River took his first unassisted step the day Damien closed a 9-figure deal without once checking the nursery feed. Luna said, Mama, clear as bells while reaching for Marisol's hair. Sage laughed, actually laughed, when Damien spun him in circles in the garden. And every victory ended the same way. Bodies tangled, sheets ruined, promises whispered into damp and sacred against skin. One night, after hours of slow, almost unbearably tender lovemaking, Damien traced the stretch marks low on her belly marks from carrying her own baby years ago in Colombia. a child she'd lost at 20 weeks. He kissed every silver line like they were holy. "I want more children with you," he said, voice rough with truth. "I want noise and chaos and sticky fingers and everything I thought died with Juliet." Marisol's eyes filled. She pulled him over her again, guided him inside, wrapped her legs high around his back. "Then give me everything," she whispered. "Start now." He did. He made love to her like the future depended on it. Slow, deep, relentless, until the headboard knocked softly against the wall, and the redwoods outside shook with wind that sounded like applause. Later, spent and wrapped around each other, she murmured against his chest, "They're going to run soon, Damien." All three of them. He kissed her temple, believing her for the first time in years. "I know, Carino, because you taught us how. If you're crying happy tears right now, comment, 'They're healing,' and tag someone who needs to believe in second chances." We're almost at the moment that breaks the internet. San Francisco, late afternoon. Damien was on the 42nd floor, signing papers that would make him another billion when his phone vibrated once. Motion alert, great room. He opened the app without thinking. 3 tiny custom-fitted wheelchairs sat abandoned in a perfect row, like relics in a museum no one would ever visit again. In the center of the sun-flooded room stood Luna, River, and Sage, barefoot, wobbling, holding hands. Marisol knelt 5 feet away, arms open, tears already streaming down her face. "Come to Mama," she whispered, then froze, eyes flying to the hidden camera, realizing what she'd just said. The children didn't hesitate. 1 step, a second. Then all 3 ran, lurching, laughing, arms outstretched, straight into her embrace. 4 bodies hit the floor in a tangle of limbs and joy and impossible tears. Marisol clutched them to her chest, rocking, sobbing, kissing every tiny face over and over. "Miss Bibes, Miss Milagros, you did it. You did it." Damien was already moving. He left the pen on the contract, left his jacket, left the stunned investors mid-sentence. He broke every speed limit up the coast, tires screaming like his heart. When he burst through the front door 93 minutes later, he found them exactly what the camera had promised. Marisol on the rug, surrounded by his children, all 4 of them laughing and crying at once. The second she saw him in the doorway, she opened one arm without a word. Damien dropped to his knees and gathered them all, his sons, his woman, his future, and held on so tight he felt 3 tiny heartbeats thundering against his own. River tugged his shirt. "Papa, look." I runned. Luna pressed a sloppy kiss to his cheek. "Love you big." Sage, quiet Sage, simply laid his head on Damien's shoulder and sighed the deepest, happiest sound Damien had ever heard. Marisol met his eyes over their heads. Her lips trembled. "I didn't mean to say it," she whispered. "It just came out." Damien reached for her hand, brought it to his mouth, kissed her knuckles like they were sacred. "Say it again," he said, voice raw. She smiled through tears. "Come to Mama." And this time, he did. Later that night, after the children were finally asleep in real beds for the first time, Damien carried Marisol to their bedroom. He undressed her slowly, reverently, kissing every mark he'd left on her body over the past months, every bruise, every love bite, every place his mouth had claimed her. When they were both bare, he laid her down and slid inside her with one long, unbroken stroke. No rush, no frenzy, just homecoming. They moved together like tide and shore, eyes locked, breathing each other's breath. "I love you," he said against her lips, the words finally easy. "I should have said it the first night you let me inside you." "I knew," she answered, clenching around him, pulling him deeper. "I always knew." When she came, it was quiet and devastating, tears slipping into her hair, his name a soft sob of gratitude. When he followed, he stayed buried deep and whispered forever against her skin. Outside, the redwoods stood guard over a house that finally sounded like living. Inside, a family, broken once, rebuilt stronger, learned how to walk, how to love, how to never let go. And somewhere in the nursery, 3 empty wheelchairs waited for morning, when 3 little miracles would run past them again and never look back. If this story just stitched something broken back together inside you, do 3 things right now. Hit like twice so YouTube knows this matters. Comment "Love wins" so I can find you and thank you personally. Share this video with the one person who needs to remember that miracles still happen after the worst has already come. Thank you for walking this impossible, beautiful road with me. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, Keep choosing love, even when it terrifies you. Good night, family. Mr. Cael. Stories. Out.